Welcome to the MJ Sports Podcast. I'm joined by Jonas, and this is your week of sports and review.
Sports. Woo! And we're back, baby. Back to the old sports grind.
That's right, and that means another week of sports to cover.
Man, I'm feeling good after this week, man. I'm feeling pretty good.
You and the Cowboys pulling off one of the most impressive comebacks I think I've seen in a while.
Hey, it was not a pretty game, but I will take it. I will freaking take it.
As a Cowboys fan, are you feeling confident after that?
Absolutely not. I feel horrible. I mean, it was lucky. It was so lucky because I don't think there's any way that we beat Seattle this next week, but I mean, we would have been off to 0-3 pretty much, which is opposite of what we did last year. So who knows? Maybe we should have gone 0-3 and then just came back, but no.
Well, every win counts. But we'll talk a little bit more about this game. We're going to start off with a new segment that we're putting together. Currently, we're going to call it Trash or Cash. That's probably going to change because to something a little more creative. But essentially, it's like what it sounds. We're going to go through a couple of things that maybe happened over this last week and determine if we think it was trash or if it was cash. Trash is negative, cash is good. So
get that bread.
So we're gonna actually start off with that Cowboys-Falcons game. Falcons don't recover that onside kick. What are your thoughts on that, Jonas?
Okay, well, I'll start off by defining the two sides to this story here. So people saying the Falcons choked it away are obviously going to say that was a trash decision, an absolute bonehead play by their players. Obviously that was going 10 yards. Why didn't they just jump on it, before it crossed the 45-yard line, yada, 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 But look, if we're taking, the cash decision by the Falcons players here, they're thinking, in that moment, hey, that ball's not going 10 yards. It's going out of bounds. No need for me to jump on it and look like a fool, and just hand the ball right to the Cowboys. So in good faith of being a Cowboys fan, I'm going to say we earned that victory. The Falcons didn't give it to us. And I'm going to say it was a cash money decision by the Falcons right there.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up. That is right. I did listen to some people defending that. But football is a sport where you need to be aggressive. And if you're on the hands team, you need to be going after that ball. So this is a trash decision in my mind. Just jump on it. There was like 4 Falcons players around that ball who had the opportunity to jump on it. And, some people were like, oh, they're supposed to be blocking. I didn't see any blocking there. Like, there was 4 guys not doing anything that could have fallen on that ball. So I'm going with that. This is a trash decision. The Cowboys did not earn this. They won in the Cowboys' way, which is let the other team choke it away.
Hey, they were too mesmerized by the beautifulness that was Greg Zuerlein's onside kick. They just had never seen such beauty before. That little roller, they called it the watermelon kick.
I haven't seen an onside kick like that. I've been a big fan of the new popular thing, which is to, kind of kick it up high. And then the idea being that gives your guys time to advance and get to the 10 yards for when that ball comes down. And, when the guy who's supposed to be catching that ball sees all these people on the kicking team running at him, that might distract them a little bit and force them to mess it up. I mean, me being a Packers fan, I had to deal with one of the most heartbreaking onside kick things in the playoffs against Seattle, a team that I absolutely despise. So this is absolutely a trash decision. But you know what? I can respect your opinion. Moving.
Not much, or not very many things bring me such joy as that onside kick that the Packers failed miserably on.
Like I said, moving on. So, our next trash or cash decision. You may have heard Adam Schefter reported it earlier today. Tyrod Taylor was sabotaged by his own team. The team doctor accidentally punctured his lung right before the game. And that opened up the opportunity for Justin Herbert to start. And I think everybody agrees that was a very impressive debut against the Kansas City Chiefs. So, if Tyrod Taylor gets healthy again, do you start him over Justin Herbert?
Okay. My first thing is his name pronounced Herbert, or is it pronounced like Sherbet? Like Herbet? The ice cream? Because personally, I think Herbet sounds much better.
All right. Well, we'll reach out to him for comment on proper name pronunciation.
Yes, I agree with that. Okay. Sorry, back to the legitimate question here. Yeah, Tyrod Taylor. Now, apparently, the doctor's supposed to say there's like a very slim chance that puncturing that lung can happen. Kind of like your like medical side effects. But it does seem more like sabotage in this situation. Like somebody just doesn't like Tyrod Taylor. Maybe it's just like the NFL gods just despise Tyrod Taylor for some reason. Yeah, but I don't know. To me, it's a tough decision, right? Because Drew Lock kind of had this thing last year. It's like the first couple games when he just like destroyed the Texans. I don't know if that was his first game or his second game, but now he's just like, I mean, he's kind of sucked since then, and obviously got hurt this past week. But I don't know. In this situation, I think I would go with Tyrod Taylor. Just give him another shot. He beat the Bengals in week 1. So I don't know. I'd go back with him. And then I guess if he's just, trash for a couple games once he comes back, I guess put Herbert in if you're not in a position to get in the playoffs. But I don't know. I'd say put Tyrod in for now.
Yeah, no, I can definitely agree there. Tyrod Taylor is one of the most unlucky quarterbacks because it seems like anytime he has a chance to start somewhere, something happens. Either someone comes in to replace him, or in this case, the team doctor punctures his lung. Just situations like that. It's very unfortunate for him. I mean, granted, he's still getting paid a lot more money than I'm making, but he hasn't really had his chance to, really solidify himself as a quarterback in this league the last couple of years because of that. But I got to say, Herbert, pretty impressive debut. I mean, he knocked a guy out pretty much by hitting him. I mean, I like seeing that from quarterbacks. I did see that Anthony Lynn said that, Anthony Lynn's a former player, and he did say that they were, that before Taylor was ruled out, that they would be going with him again. And I think that part of that comes from Lynn being a former player, understanding like, okay, this is something that was completely out of his control. Like, he wasn't even in the game when he got hurt. It was a team doctor who caused the injury.
Right.
I don't know, man. I mean, if you're the Chargers, obviously it's going to depend a lot on how this next week goes. Because, we see this with rookie quarterbacks sometimes. They come in, they have a good debut, and then once they actually get thrust into that starting role for longer than a week or two, they start to struggle. So this is tough for me. I mean, ultimately, I'm going to agree. I think they should roll with Tyrod Taylor moving forward, give Herbert a little bit more time to develop. But, I mean, if Herbert puts up another good game this week, they may have a hard time telling the fans that they're going to go back to Tyrod Taylor.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you could have like a Lamar Jackson scenario here, but to me, I view it more of like if Fitzpatrick for the Dolphins gets hurt for like 1 or 2 weeks and Tua comes in and plays really well, yet they still lose. Like I guess maybe if the Chargers win this next week, then maybe you have an argument. But like if they lose again, and just like if Tua came in, he played really well, had good stats, but they lost both games. It's like, would you really stick with Tua just because he's playing well, or do you go back to Fitzpatrick? To me, I just go back to my veteran quarterback, because most likely I don't think the Chargers are going to be that successful this year. But
nope, I agree. I'm saying it'd be smart to start Tyrod Taylor over Herbert.
Yeah.
Once he's fully healthy, of course, because you kind of need your lungs to play football.
Yeah.
Our next topic, it's going to move on to some of the new stadiums here in the league. We've got the Raiders Stadium, otherwise known as the Death Star, or what some people are referring to, also kind of looks like a toilet bowl. And then we've got the new LA Stadium, that multi-billion-dollar investment. What are your thoughts?
Jerry Jones for that.
Yeah.
Well, my first thought is, honestly, the first time I saw the Los Angeles Stadium was in Madden 21, and I was like, holy cow, this looks pretty awesome, as far as just, because you're kind of getting a closer look, I guess, even though it's like animated more. But at least in Madden, it looked pretty cool. And then when I saw it in real life, or at least on the TV, I guess, it still looked pretty awesome. And I think as you get newer and newer stadiums, they're just going to end up costing more and more money. Because like the Cowboy Stadium is like $1.4 billion, and its first season I think was like 2012, I believe, and that was 8 years ago. And now, like the Rams Stadium was like $5 billion.
Yeah, it was a little. Yeah, I think it was about 5.5.
Yeah, just crazy expensive. But I mean, it looks awesome. And then I guess my thoughts on the Raiders Stadium would just be, it kind of looks cool, but it also kind of looks like trash. I mean, I don't know. I'm kind of mixed on the Raiders Stadium.
Yeah, I like them both. I mean, the new stadiums that these teams keep building keep getting more and more extravagant. And I do I have a special place in my heart for more historic type stadiums, like you think like Lambeau and Soldier Field. There's definitely, I like having some of those stadiums still around. But man, seeing some of these new, domes, you go back and you think about the Falcons Stadium too. I mean, over the last couple of years, I need to go and see some games of these because, watching them looking at it on the TV while watching the game. I mean, granted, I'm sure it's a whole lot more spectacular in person, but they look really cool in my opinion.
I just think, I think some of the older stadiums would be fine to stay, but they almost need to be like renovated, because like the Cowboy Stadium at the time, there was like really nothing like it, right? And me and my dad went to a game in its first year, and the space behind like the stadium seats is just so massive versus some of these, like especially like college football stadiums where they're built for like pee-wee people almost, and obviously like the average size of people has gone up over time. So some of these older stadiums, I think they need to renovate to be more accommodating to the larger people. But other than that, I mean, it is cool to see some like the classic stadiums. And I want one other thing with the Raiders. I think they do. I think the stadium looks pretty cool at night whenever you see like the reflection of the lights everywhere. But I don't think you don't really get that cool effect during the day. But
Yeah, no, I agree with what you were saying on the older stadiums, and that's a big part of it. Nobody wants to go to an old stadium that feels like an old stadium.
right.
You want to go, you want to see, the same stadium that's seen in all the history that was made there, and all the old teams that played there. But you want it to feel like, a modern day stadium. And, it still may not feel quite as nice because, these older stadiums, they're not bowls. They don't have a roof. They're outdoors. So, that changes some of the amenities you can have inside. But, I agree. And I think the NFL teams have done a better job than some other sports teams. Like baseball has just got some rundown parks that need a lot of work.
Yeah.
But I think NFL teams have done a much better job of keeping their stadiums up to date over time.
Yeah, I'd agree. I'd agree with that. The Packers, you guys need to add some seated heats or whatever, heat seaters.
You go to Lambeau in the winter for if you're an avid fan. Okay, that's part of the experience. If you go to Lambeau in the winter and you're not shirtless with a painted stomach and painted face and everything, you're doing it wrong. It's only the most avid fans come out during that time. That's what helps the team, in those cold months. Is there's not only the advantage of other teams not being used to the cold, but you've got the best fans and most avid fans in football out there during that time screaming at you the whole game. So, plus I'm pretty sure plenty of them stay plenty warm with some of the flasks that I'm sure they sneak in and stuff. But,
oh yeah, I'm sure.
It is Wisconsin, but anyways, there's some other NFL storylines that came out this week, and some other people have talked about them, so we're going to cover them too. And number one is, does Drew Brees actually suck? Everyone's reaction after watching him this week was, he's kind of throwing some ducks. There wasn't a whole lot of zip on his passes. And people were saying that 2 years ago. They weren't saying that last year, but part of the reason people claim that is, he had a 5-game, break, essentially, where
Right.
Teddy Bridgewater filled in for him. And, a lot of people think that maybe his arm can't handle the, all the throws that it's taken over the years. What are your thoughts on that? Do you think he really sucks?
So I think I've seen this same story before, and it was called Peyton Manning, right? Peyton Manning, but although Peyton Manning had the luxury of having like the best defense in the NFL whenever they won the Super Bowl like 5 years ago, I don't know if Drew Brees, in my opinion, has truly been like the elite Drew Brees since they lost to the Vikings that year. And I mean, you could argue that they could have beat Philadelphia in the playoffs to go to the Super Bowl that year. And then obviously the next year they got to the NFC Championship game, but I don't know if that was in part of Drew Brees because he still, to me, he's just kind of declined over the years and just has slowly looked worse and worse and worse. So, I mean, I don't know if there's what you want to add to this, but
I think it's hard to say that a quarterback who's put up the numbers that Drew Brees has put up over the years sucks. Obviously, as you get older in the quarterback, he's not the same player he was when he was younger. I was listening to some people talk about it, and they pointed out that, Drew Brees has never really been like that. Aaron Rodgers is known for throwing darts. There's some quarterbacks that throw harder than others, but there's quarterbacks like Peyton Manning and Drew Brees who have been more about accuracy over time. And I think we're starting to see a little bit of a degradation there too, and that's why this question's coming up because he's used, and part of this is he didn't have Michael Thomas, and granted, I know he's used to just throwing like 5 yard slants to Michael Thomas all game, and that's kind of how he makes his game. But if that offense works, that offense works. I don't know if I'd say he sucks, but I don't think he's definitely not elite anymore. He's still got that. Yeah, it's tough.
I don't know. To me, it also was strange seeing him, like the post-game interview. It kind of seemed like he was blaming like the rest of his team. I know at one point he was like, well, one drive we were going on the field and we had like 2 holding penalties and like a block in the back. And I was thinking, well, that's a way to just throw your offensive lineman under the bus. So to me, it's kind of odd seeing him blame some of the other players after the game when it was like, okay, you played pretty bad. Like you got outplayed by Derek Carr. So I hadn't really seen that from him before. But I don't know. To me, he just I don't know. I think the Saints made a bad decision by letting Teddy Bridgewater go because I don't think Drew Brees is going to make it past this year. Honestly.
Yeah, and my opinion on that too is that I think it's too early. It's week 2. We just finished up week 2. I don't think you could really start judging players' performances until we get more to that week 4 or 5. At that point, offenses should be fully in swing. You've had plenty of practice reps. You've had plenty of in-game reps. I feel like that's a better way to judge a player's performance rather than just taking, 2 games and most of the criticism coming off of this one loss. So, that's something I think we need to watch out for in the next couple weeks just to see.
I mean, that's fair. That's fair. I might be overreacting a little bit, but I don't know. We'll see. We'll see.
All right. Well, our next storyline is all of the 49ers injuries. Do all these injuries make the 49ers the worst team in the NFC West?
Okay. Now, this is not necessarily based off of the 49ers injuries or the 49ers play, but more on the Arizona Cardinals play and how good they have looked. Now, granted, they only beat Washington this past week, but Kyler Murray, to me, already looks elite. And I'm a big Oklahoma college football fan, so watching him in college, I'm going to say that the Cardinals did improve past the 49ers, especially with the 49ers injuries. I mean, I think they are. I think they're not the worst team. By saying worst team in the NFC West is like saying they're still the best team of the NFC East, right? Like, so don't misconstrue saying the worst. Just the word worst here. So.
No, I think I agree with you. I mean, this Cardinals team looks much improved, and I mean, you think about the other 2 teams in that division. I mean, the Rams look really good, and I mean, Seattle is just crushing it right now. Russell Wilson's playing on a whole nother level. I think part of this is going to depend on how long Garoppolo's out, and I've heard that they think his injuries are less severe than originally thought, and that there's a chance he plays this week. I don't think that happens, but obviously losing a player like Bosa on the defensive line, I mean, who can just turn a game on its heels. I mean, he pretty much did that with the Packers last year. It was just totally disrupted their offense. I mean, that's a huge loss for that defense. So I think I agree with you. I think the Arizona Cardinals are just so much more of a dynamic team at this point.
Well, and didn't they lost like their other, I don't know if it was another defensive tackle or their other defensive end, but they lost another guy to a torn ACL.
Yeah, no, I saw that too. Their defensive line is pretty much scrapped at this point.
I mean,
So
the only reason they were so good last year is because of their defense, and they lost Tevin Coleman for a few weeks and Raheem Mostert for a few weeks.
well, and don't forget
So
that Richard Sherman's still out too. So I know Sherman's not, the same player he was, but he's still a good player in that backfield. So I mean, they're really hurting right now because of that injury bug.
yeah, personally, as a Cowboys fan, I hope they just lose the rest of their games. But
Oh, as a Packers fan, I hope they lose the rest of their games. But, so our next storyline is it's kind of funny. Patriots Seahawks. Big game. One that I last week said that I was really excited for, and would really show what this Patriots team is really made of. And for the most part, I think the Patriots impressed. Going up against that
yes,
Seattle team. Unfortunately, they made about the most predictable call on the goal line.
they should have
And
thrown. They should have
I know,
thrown.
I know. I guess they didn't want to. They didn't want to repeat what Seattle did a couple of years ago, and have all the memes made of them in this situation. But I think this game, you know, shows that this Patriots team is still a team to be reckoned with. Even with all their opt outs and Brady gone. I mean, I think Newton does help bring a new dimension to this offense.
I think he does. Although it's kind of shocking that they have been such successful the first two games with just running Cam Newton so much, because I feel like this is what has kind of happened to Kaepernick was teams just figured out, okay, he's going to run so much, and they were able to stop him after a couple years. To me, it's kind of a wonder that teams haven't figured out that he's just going to run the ball a lot. But maybe that's just the genius of Bill Belichick.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's definitely part of it. I mean, you got to see two great coaches go at it, in that game between Pete Carroll and Bill Belichick. So it'll be interesting to see how this progresses, because I agree they are running Cam Newton a lot, and teams are going to catch on to that. But I mean, maybe that opens up the passing game more. Maybe that opens up, some other trick type plays like screens, stuff like that. Who knows? I mean, I wouldn't put anything past Bill Belichick.
And the other kind of branch off question I want to ask you is, has the Seahawks defense actually gotten worse after adding Jamal Adams?
They've given up a lot of points, and again, I think the answer to that kind of has to be that it's too soon to tell. I mean, again, we're only 2 weeks in, no preseason, shorter off-season reps. I mean, it's hard to think that adding a player like Jamal Adams would make a team, defense worse. But I mean, so far through this first 2 weeks, I think the numbers might actually say that. But I still think he's a beast to add to that team in the long term.
Yeah, I think it'll be interesting because they gave up 25 points to Atlanta week 1, which I think one of those was a garbage touchdown. And then obviously 30 points. I mean, they made the stop that counted in the end, but I'll be kind of interested to see the game against the Cowboys this week, considering so far neither of these two defenses that on paper are supposed to be good have really impressed. But
yeah, no, that'll be, again, I think once we get more to that week 4, week 5 type of timeline, we're gonna have a better idea of who these teams really are.
yeah.
So another storyline, this was the week of injuries. We talked about this earlier with the 49ers, but it was all throughout the NFL this week. I mean, everybody's getting hurt. And
Yeah.
do you think that's due to less time to work out and no preseason potentially?
I don't know. To me, it's hard because, right, you have people like J.J. Watt who constantly work out, almost work out too much, to where that causes him to get injured more. And I don't know. The things like the ACLs, and I guess just like one thing to mention as far as the torn ACLs, like torn ligaments in the knee, is that it's mostly due to like torque whenever you plant your foot and then you twist your leg. That kind of causes that tearing of the ligament and how much torque is put on the ligament. So it's kind of interesting, and that's why you see so many like non-contact injuries, right? But it is kind of weird to see so many torn ACLs this week. And I know our podcast mentioned the MetLife turf. Now, I think you had a little bit more insight onto like kind of the description of the turf from players. I don't know if you want to go into that.
Yeah, I mean, I heard AJ Hawk was talking, earlier today, and he was mentioning that some of the players seem to say that the turf almost seemed tacky. And that's part of the thing is, you play on, a turf field. I mean, every field's different, you hear announcers talk about guys having to change cleats, depending on what type of turf is used or if it's grass or whatever. That really does play a big difference when you think, because, I mean, these players are making, these athletes are making these cuts, they're trying to stop on a dime. If you're not able to stop properly, that's going to cause issues. So I think that's what some of the concern is. Now, I did see the NFL checks all the fields and inspects them before games, and it did pass the inspection. And I did hear that I think they were going to look into it again, and that the players union said that they would also be checking it out, and they would be backing it. Said they would actually back a protest if the players union didn't feel that the field was up to standards. So I'm a little interested to see how that goes this next week. Um, I have a hard time believing that players would lie about the turf. Like, you just don't hear that very often. Like, oh, I tore my ACL because of the turf. Like,
right. Well, I don't know. To me, I can see it because, like I said, like if part of the turf is a little bit more forgiving and allows you to, make cuts easier, and then all of a sudden you're stepping on a part of the turf that, I don't know, maybe has like more rubber pellets, or your cleat kind of gets stuck in there and you try to make a quick turn. I mean, I could see how that could cause an ACL tear. So right. I don't know.
Well, and that's what I'm saying is, we're seeing the players actually call it out right now. So that's what makes me think, because, normally when a player tears their ACL, they don't blame it on the turf. But with all the injuries we saw in this game and so many players complaining about the turf, it makes you think that there might actually be an issue.
Yeah. And obviously you can use that for this game. But I mean, there's so many other injuries, like with Saquon, and I know he's like struggled behind the Giants offensive line, but it seems like he's almost become kind of injury prone over the last couple of years.
Yeah, I mean, part of that, I mean, you think that kind of comes a little bit with being kind of the hard-nosed runner that he is. You don't see that as much with some of these more elusive backs, but I mean, these injuries he's getting aren't necessarily related to some of the, punishment he's dishing out. So
right.
I'd agree with that. I mean, that's something to definitely watch. And I mean, for a running back, any type of injury is huge because, if you can't recover from it properly or in time, we know how the NFL works. Another player steps in and fills your role, and I mean, I'm sure that's not going to happen with Saquon with all the hype he's generated in his years in the NFL, but it's something to watch out for because over these first couple of years, he's kind of shown a little bit of that injury proneness.
Yeah, well, to me, it almost seems like people, like the players with more muscle mass, are more like injury prone. I don't know, because like you have J.J. Watt is the other guy, and then obviously Saquon with his like massive legs and massive arms, versus like Zeke, who has been in the league for 5 years, and you see him running all over the field and all over people, and he has never got injured.
That's true. I've never really thought about that. Yeah, I mean that. I can't speak from a medical perspective on if that's actually true, but pointing that out, it does make you wonder. But
Yeah, I'm not really too sure on the anatomy there.
yeah. So for our next storyline, we're going to take it back to the NFC North. So we've got some interesting storylines here. The Packers are 2-0, and the Bears are 2-0. However, I think if you're a fan, there's very different levels of confidence in those 2 wins for both those teams. I'm a Packers fan who lives in an area surrounded by Bears fans. So me as a Packers fan, our offense is one of 2 teams to put up over 80 points and 1,000 yards in their first 2 games. I mean, the offense has just been incredible. Now, granted, this has been against a Minnesota team that was missing Danielle Hunter and that had young corners. And then you've got pretty much the same thing in Detroit. They let Darius Slay go, and they start Jeff Okudah, the highly touted corner, which Devontae Adams just made him look silly on 1 or 2 plays. There was a juke there where Okudah just kind of looked lost, like he had never seen that type of move before. But as a Packers fan, you're real confident in this team. And the Bears fan, if you're a Bears fan, you're happy to be 2-0 because 2-0, with the expanded playoffs, it's a big deal. That goes a long way.
Yeah, but you're essentially like 6 wins away from the playoff spot almost.
Right. But they haven't really been complete wins. Like you've seen flashes, more flashes of Mitchell Trubisky, but it's the same thing as always. He's a very inconsistent player. In the first game, he really struggled in that first half. And then he played lights out in the second half and led him to the win. However, this past week against the Giants, started out real strong. They got a nice lead. And then in the second half, he had a couple picks, didn't really do anything. I mean, it looked like the inconsistent version of Mitchell Trubisky that we're used to, which if I'm a Bears fan, this has got to drive me crazy because, you see him, it seems like it almost like he has a really good drive, like does everything right, makes the right reads, just dropping dimes. And then it's almost like the next drive, it's a completely different player. So it's interesting to me. And then you've got the Vikings, who I think everybody was picking to be, one of the teams to beat out of the NFC North. They're 0-2. And Kirk Cousins has really, really struggled this year.
Yeah, I don't think Kirk Cousins likes that too much so far. But, yeah, you mentioned Trubisky looks like he has a drive where he looks good every so often. It almost makes me think of Jared Goff in a way, where Matt Nagy can have a good scripted drive, and it allows Trubisky to play well. But it seems like Matt Nagy can't he can't script that many good drives together. Where obviously I think Jared Goff is better than Trubisky, to where he can kind of improvise some. But I wonder if that's if McVay is just that good of a coach where he can just script so many plays to where the Rams are successful, versus Nagy, can script some here and there to where they get enough points to where the defense can just win the game. Or if it's a combination of the coaching and the quarterback play, which I think it probably would be, and then just a short synopsis of the Packers here for me. Last year they looked incredibly lucky and not really that skilled. This year, the 2 wins, not like you guys got lucky, won by like a field goal or like 6 points. Like you guys just dominated them. You dominated the Vikings. You dominated the Lions. So far, it looks like you guys are playing better this season than last year. And that's probably, it helps that LaFleur is in his second season of coaching. So, yeah.
No, I agree. And part of that is it sounds like more of the Packers players have bought into LaFleur's playbook. Last year was the first year in the offense. I think that was a big part of it now that they've got their second year in it. I mean, the play calling is so much more dynamic this year. I mean, it's just fun to watch. I mean, defenses have no idea what's being thrown at them. But yeah, as you were saying, about the combination of coaching and, Trubisky's play potentially, I agree with that. I mean, I think Nagy does some good scripting. I just don't think he's quite as good at it as what McVay is, and I don't think he has as many plays in his book that McVay can pull out. But you also have to think, I mean, Jared Goff's got some good weapons over there in LA.
That is true. That is true.
Mitchell Trubisky has an old Jimmy Graham who has done nothing over the last couple of years.
Yeah, he needs to retire.
Yeah.
Honestly.
And he's got Allen Robinson, who doesn't even want to be a Bear anymore. He deleted all of his Bears stuff from his social media profile. He wants that extension, and Chicago doesn't seem to want to pay him. So, I mean, to be fair, Trubisky doesn't have as many weapons to work with. Now, he does have one of the better pass-catching running backs in Tariq Cohen, who can make a lot of plays. But I feel like sometimes they don't use their running backs quite as effectively as they can. You've got David Montgomery, who's more of that power run. And then you've got Tariq Cohen, who's, that elusive back who could catch out of the backfield and make a play happen. And, some games it seems like they use Montgomery and Cohen effectively. In other games, it's like Montgomery gets 8 touches and Cohen gets like 10. It's like your running game is where you guys have always thrived. So yeah. I think it's a combination of a lack of playmaking ability on that offense. Sometimes running out of, play, some of those scripted plays and scripted drives, and, just overall maybe a little bit of a lack of focus from Trubisky from time to time.
Yeah.
I think that's something that, they've got to improve going forward if they want to win. Once they start playing some better teams, they might get blown out pretty good if Trubisky can't put a full game together. But, I mean, 2 wins for the Bears. Bears fans have got to be happy. I think I saw this is their best start since like 2003 or something like that. So that's pretty wild to think about. So we'll see how that continues and if the Vikings can pick it up.
Well, do you want to move on to what we big-brained and what we failed at, which we didn't fail at much this week, but
yeah, we we both actually ended up picking the Raiders over the Saints, and I think that's something. I don't think that was a popular pick.
I don't think it was either. Honestly, I was still a little shocked that the Raiders won, but I was happy to see it.
Yeah, I mean, they're really leveraging Josh Jacobs, and he's just butting into a star running back. I mean, he really helps that offense, and that's all you can ask for out of him because, a quarterback like Derek Carr, if you have a strong running game, that can really make Carr a much better player. So I've been impressed with them so far this season. I'm interested to see how far they can go. And, Ruggs has shown some nice flashes as a wide receiver and what he can do once he gets the ball. So I think they might have a solid wide out there that might be budding into a little bit of a star.
Yeah, I think John Gruden is finally figured out like what the team identity is, what he wants to do. Like he finally has players in the positions that he wants. He doesn't have to deal with Antonio Brown anymore. Like, I mean, they really are just like a ground and pound team, and they've got it set up perfectly for the play action. And having a tight end like Darren Waller to fall back on for safe throws, for those play action throws, and he's not even a guy that will does the Jason Witten where he takes 8 yards and falls down. He can do that, but he can also get downfield and run with the best of them. So I think they've got a pretty good system in place to be at least surely they can make a wild card this year. Like surely.
Nope, I agree completely. I think that team's starting to finally come together. So we'll move on from that. We're not going to brag too much about our big brain there, but we both actually missed one game. So I'll start with me. I picked the Giants to beat the Bears,
Ooh.
and I'm going to blame that on Saquon getting hurt. I know he struggled in week 1, but that's a big weapon for their offense. You kind of have to play the run if he's in the game, a little more often. Daniel Jones can't lead that offense all by himself. So
I'm gonna blame it on Daniel Jones's constant fumbleitis.
Well, that's true too. I mean, hey, they almost came back there at the end. I mean, the Bears tried to blow it, but
the Bears tend to try to blow it.
Yeah.
And I guess the one that I missed, which to me seemed like a smarter pick than the Giants pick, is the old Minshew Mania Jaguars. I mean, they lost on a 54-yard Stephen Gostkowski field goal. So going into that field goal, I was feeling pretty decent. It was going to overtime. But, Gostkowski pulled out his former self in that moment.
Yep. But I'd say it's a pretty good week overall. We both only missed one game, so we're gonna start keeping track of our records throughout the season to see who's better at picking these games. So, hopefully we'll have a little bit more of a variation there. Maybe one that leads a little bit more towards my picks. But moving on. We've got to make our picks for this week. And I think we already covered Thursday, and I want to say we both picked the Jaguars over the Dolphins. Is that correct, Jonas?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty popular pick right now. So not going to spend much time on that. So starting on Sunday, we've got the Texans at the Steelers.
I don't know if you want to go first on this one because it's a tough decision.
So I'm going to pick the Steelers. And I know the Steelers. I think the Steelers are the favorite in this game, but I really think this is going to be a close matchup because you think Texans have played arguably the two top teams in the league. They're 0-2. Now they are playing an absolute juggernaut of a defense with the Steelers. I mean, the Steelers' defense has been phenomenal this season. The offense hasn't gotten clicking yet. But I'm going with the Steelers because their defense seems to make big plays. Their defense seems to score points. I think they're going to end up pulling it out.
Okay, to me, I think the Texans have, having Randall Cobb and Brandon Cooks, these, first couple weeks, they've tried figuring out what's going on with them too. What they're going to be doing. And I think Deshaun Watson, I think they're going to pull it out by like a field goal, like 21 to like 23 to 20, something like that. I'm going to take the Texans. They really need a win. I think they feel that if they don't win this game, they're going to be in real trouble. So I'm going to say, they have the heart and pull it out in this one.
All right.
Well, moving on to our next game, we've got the Bengals at the Eagles. I'll let you go first on this one.
Yeah, I'm going to go with another spicy pick. I think Joe Burrow gets his first win in the NFL against a very hurt Eagles team and a Carson Wentz who just looks like utter garbage right now.
I think I'm going to go with the Bengals too. Joe Burrow's thrown the ball a lot over these last couple weeks, and they've played. I mean, they could be 2-0 at this point. I mean, they have not. I mean, you think about it. I mean, they didn't lose to the Browns by much, and they could have won in week 1. So, if it wasn't for a cramp. So I do agree with you. I think Joe Burrow gets his first win here. I think they continue to feature him in that offense quite a bit. And I think the Eagles go 0-3.
Should we make this our big brain pick of the week, or do you want to wait until we pick all the games to decide that?
I think we pick all the games first. We got to see what we're going to agree on and what we disagree on.
Okay.
So, next we've got the 49ers at the Giants. The Giants also got hit by the injury bug a little bit with Sterling Shepard and Saquon Barkley. I'm going with the 49ers.
Yeah, I'm still going with the 49ers. I don't think it'll be that hard for them to win, even if it's like 10-7, a horrible game. But I think they'll win.
Yep, I agree. Next, we've got the Raiders at Patriots, which could be an interesting game.
This one will be pretty interesting. Oh man, I'm gonna go with the Patriots just because I think Bill Belichick is still smarter than John Gruden.
I think this is going to be a close one. I don't think the Raiders are as good as Seattle. So I've got to agree with you there. I think Belichick, I think the Patriots will do a better job of stopping the run. And that's really what you're going to have to do with this Raiders team. You're going to have to make Derek Carr throw the ball a lot. So I agree. I think the Patriots pull this one out. I still think this is a close game, though. This is by no means a blowout.
Right.
All right. Next, we've got the Titans at the Vikings. And I'm going to make a bold pick here. I'm going to go with the Vikings. I have not been impressed with the Titans so far. They're 2-0, but Derrick Henry really they haven't gotten him going like they wanted to. And Ryan Tannehill does everything they ask. They don't feature him a ton, but he doesn't turn the ball over. So I just think that Mike Zimmer, he's fired up. I think Kirk Cousins is going to come out to prove himself that he's not horrible this year. After last week's just tremendously bad performance, I think he comes out with a little bit of fire. I think Adam Thielen has a huge game, and I think their defense maybe starts to put 2 and 2 together and maybe put up halfway decent effort.
Well, I tell you one thing I agree with. I hope, well, not necessarily I agree with, but I hope Adam Thielen has a fantastic game for fantasy purposes. But to me, the Titans are the better team here. I know I picked them to lose to Jacksonville, but that was more of just a, maybe they weren't quite prepared for Minshew. And to me, so far, Tannehill has exceeded expectations. He's definitely playing good enough for that contract that he just got. So even without Derrick Henry playing really well, seeing how Rodgers picked apart the Vikings' new secondary, I think Tannehill can do the same. I don't know if this is a blowout per se, but I don't know. I think it might be 7 to 10 points. If the Titans defense just plays like halfway decent, it could be 7 to 10 points.
I want you to know that I personally take offense to you comparing Ryan Tannehill and Aaron Rodgers as quarterbacks. So I'm just gonna move on there, and I'm gonna go with my next pick. I'm picking the Browns over the Washington football team. Browns, Baker played a great game this last week. I think the Browns come out and, the Washington football team, they've still got a lot of work they need to do, but
Well, I think I'm going to agree with you. I think Washington just got lucky against the Eagles that first week. But I think the Browns, I don't know. I feel like Mayfield kind of knows, like, okay, this is a below average team. We need to win. And they tend to do pretty well against below average teams. So, yeah, I'll agree with you there.
next we've got an interesting matchup between the Rams and the Bills.
Yeah, so, man, Josh Allen has played great so far. And it's at Buffalo. I know there's no fans, but I'm just going to go with Buffalo here. I think I don't know. I think Josh Allen, man, he's looked pretty good so far. He can run. And I think Stephon Diggs proved this past week that, he is worth the addition. So, yeah, I'm going to go with the Bills.
Yeah, I'm also going to go with the Bills, and I just want to point out that Stephon Diggs had more receiving yards this last week than the Vikings did as a whole.
Yeah.
So I think that was a tremendous pickup by them. I'm sure the Vikings are regretting that a little bit right now. But, yeah, Josh Allen's just playing out of his mind right now. I think the Rams are a good team. They're well coached. I think this is going to be a higher scoring game, but I think the Bills edge it out.
Yeah.
I'm for this next pick. We've got the Bears at the Falcons, and I'm going with the Falcons. And it's not because I'm just a Packers fan. It's because the Falcons' offense has been very impressive so far to me. I know their defense doesn't, still leaves a lot to be desired, but let's be honest, so does the Bears' offense.
Yeah.
I think the Falcons are going to have a big day offensively, and I think they're going to be a little too much for the Bears unless Mitch Trubisky can put together a complete game, which he hasn't proven he can do yet. I think the Falcons win this one.
Yeah, I agree. I think, and even if Julio Jones plays with a limp again, I don't know. I mean, the Falcons really should have won this past week, so I don't see there's any reason they lose this game.
Yep. Next, we've got the Panthers at the Chargers at 3:05.
Ooh, several 3 o'clock games this week for some reason. But,
yeah.
I'm gonna go. And they're starting Herbert. Oh man,
Yeah.
this is. Man, it's kind of like Herbert versus Teddy Bridgewater. But I just remembered no Christian McCaffrey, so I'll go with the Chargers just in a close one.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking is Christian McCaffrey is the lifeblood of that offense. Not having him, that takes away a lot of what you can do. And, I gave credit to Teddy Bridgewater, after he's come back and, after that horrible injury a couple of years ago. But, yeah, I think that if the Justin Herbert we saw last week shows up this week, they end up pulling out the win. This next, then we've got the Jets and the Colts, and I'm just going to be honest. I'm probably going to pick whatever team's playing the Jets most of the year because the Jets are horrible. So, and I'm cheering for. I think Jonathan Taylor's going to run all over them. They gave up an 80-yard run on the first play of scrimmage, so, and they proved that their run defense is horrendous. Jonathan Taylor, the rookie. Put up over 100 yards last week. I think he runs all over him, and Phillip Rivers has a field day.
Yeah, I think I agree. I think if the Colts played bad last week and lost to the Vikings last week, I might be inclined to pick the Jets just on like an upset pick. But yeah, the Colts I think are the obvious pick here.
All right, next we've got your Cowboys versus the Seahawks. I'll hear from you first.
Yeah, I'm going to be honest. I don't think there's any way that we win this game. Like, our defense just looks horrible. Chidobia Awuzie, one of our corners, just got hurt this past week, hamstring injury. He's going to be out for a few weeks. So, I don't know. I just, at least Alden Smith has been good. And, that's about the only good spot on our defense so far. And, I think Russell Wilson kills us. And I think we probably lose this game by like 10 to 14 points, like 38-28.
Well, I'm going to keep it short. I'm picking the Seahawks because, they say feed Zeke, but Russ has been cooking, and he's not going to be the one feeding Zeke. So, moving on, we've got the Tampa Bay Buccaneers versus the Broncos. And I'm going with the Buccaneers here.
I got 2 words for you on this game. Blake Bortles. And those should be the only 2 words that you need to hear to pick the Buccaneers.
Yep. All right. We know Jonas's pick. Moving on, we've got the Detroit Lions at the Cardinals. We talked about it earlier. This Cardinals team is very dynamic. Last week, the Lions couldn't stop Aaron Rodgers. They're going to have the same problem stopping Kyler Murray. The Cardinals pulled this one out.
Yeah, Cardinals, easy pick.
We've got the Sunday night game, Packers at Saints. And I'll tell you what, the Saints are by far the best team we've played so far. They're going to put more of a test on our offensive line, but I think with the way Rodgers has been playing, I think the Packers pull this one out. I think this one's a high-scoring game. Big part of it's going to depend on if Mike Daniels plays for the Packers, because last week they had a real struggle stopping the run in the first half. So Alvin Kamara might run all over the Packers if Mike Daniels isn't playing or if Mike Pettin can't shore up the middle of that defensive line. But I'm still picking the Packers. I think it's a high-scoring game.
I'm going to stick with my words. Drew Brees is going to suck this year, so I'm going to pick the Packers here.
All right. And then we've got one of the more exciting matchups of this season, I think. We've got the Chiefs at the Ravens.
I can't pick against Mahomes. I don't even have the Ravens beaten the Chiefs yet. Like, I don't even know. So
no, I don't believe they have.
Yeah, I'm sticking with Mahomes. I know he looked. The Chargers defense did a pretty good job the first 3 quarters last week, but I don't know. Mahomes. I'm just picking Mahomes. It's like a battle. Do you like Mahomes or do you like Lamar Jackson better? So,
you know what? The Ravens, I saw a couple power rankings move them to number 1 after last week's performance by the Chiefs. I'm going with the Ravens. I think the Ravens are a more complete team on both sides of the ball. They have a better defense than Kansas City has. J.K. Dobbins has been a real star in their rushing game so far. I'm picking the Ravens. I think this is going to be a close one because these are 2 very dynamic offenses, and even if they struggle early, they're going to get it going at some point. So this could be just a straight shootout, honestly.
This is probably going to come down to whoever has the ball last, and I would trust both of their kickers to make any field goal.
It's true. I mean, you've arguably got the 2 best kickers in the game.
Yeah.
On these teams. So, I mean, they were talking last week that they didn't think anyone else could make a 58-yard field goal 3 times, but I'm pretty sure Justin Tucker could.
Yeah, honestly.
That was our picks for this week.
So we saying our big brain pick is indeed the Bengals for this week?
I think it is. You heard it here first. Joe Burrow's getting his first W.
That's right. Never doubt us.
Yeah, hopefully he doesn't try to eat one like Jameis did. We see how that
Oh,
went.
jeez.
But we're going to switch to a little different type of football now. College football. It's already been back, and we didn't cover it, last week.
Yeah, there was so much to talk about last week. It was hard to get to.
The big news: Big Ten is back. Granted, they're playing a shortened season. I think the Big Ten really thought that every other conference would fall in with them when they canceled. And the second that nobody else canceled, I think they realized they made a huge financial mistake. So I'm personally happy. I want to see some more Wisconsin football, and I think if they have Big Ten football, that means there's a real good chance that we have NCAA basketball this year. So
yeah, I agree. I think I saw on quick just branch off to college basketball. I think that they're going to try to start in December, and that's obviously we don't know anything about that yet. So, but there was one conference that followed in your footsteps, and that was the Pac-12. And I don't think they're going to play still, are they?
I think you're right there. I think the Pac-12 pretty much decided at the same time as the Big Ten, though. I think they just waited to announce it. I don't think it was a reaction to the Big Ten. I think the Big Ten more so expected like conferences like the Big 12, to follow suit when they saw that the Big Ten was canceling, and that just didn't happen. So,
well, see, they thought because obviously the Big 12, the SEC, and the ACC are all in the South mostly.
yeah.
And I don't know why they would be expecting, like Texas to cancel college football when they really don't even care about the virus in the first place. So, a kind of interesting decision. And now to me, the Big Ten just looks terrible because they're like, we had values, but now we're just throwing them all down the drain for money. So,
Yeah, well, there's two big storylines kind of with the college with the Big Ten coming back. My first one is, I don't know if you saw, but Scott Frost, coach of Nebraska, he pretty much came out and said that he felt like they were being punished when the schedule came out because they have to play. Their first three games this season are against Ohio State, Wisconsin, and Penn State, the top three teams in the Big Ten, which is just a brutal start to a season.
That is.
He came out and I believe he said that he felt like they were being punished because they said that they were going to go play in the Big 12, I believe.
Come back to the Big 12, Nebraska.
Yeah, but what are do you think they're being punished, or do you think that's kind of just the way the cookie crumbles?
To be honest, I don't think it matters too much because nobody thought Nebraska was going to be any good anyways. So I feel like this is Nebraska almost saying like, oh, we're being punished, feel bad for us. That way whenever we lose all these games, we have an excuse.
Oh, I agree 100%. Nobody's expecting anything out of Nebraska. And my next big storyline, I think, has to deal with the playoff predictions. With the Big Ten playing fewer games and starting later. I'll tell you my opinion. I think if Ohio State goes undefeated, they still get in. Just because I think the committee loves Ohio State. But I think it'd be much harder if another Big Ten team, say Wisconsin goes undefeated. And it would all depend, obviously, on how the rest of the season plays out for the other teams that are potentially in playoff conversation. But I think the committee, would prioritize Ohio State more than Wisconsin or Penn State. What do you think?
How many games are you guys playing?
I believe they're playing 8.
8? Yeah, to me, is that 8 and then you play a championship game for the 9th game?
I don't actually know.
Because
I think it's 8 regular season games and then a championship. I might be wrong on that.
Because that's going to only end up being, at least for Oklahoma, it's Oklahoma's only going to be playing 10 regular season games and a championship, because I'm just going to assume they make the championship because there's nobody in the Big 12 to beat them, really. But like with the SEC, I don't know if they're playing, if since they have more conference opponents, if they would be playing like another extra game to make like 12 total games with the championship. But I think Ohio State, I think you're right. I think if Ohio State or Michigan, I think if Michigan somehow goes undefeated this year, they just give them like the benefit of the doubt for being, just underachievers the last few years. But I agree, especially with Ohio State, I think they could push them in. Although the NCAA might want to, they might consider going with like an undefeated UCF or that caliber team, because to me this would be the perfect year to do that.
Yeah, I just looked it up. It's an 8 weeks regular season schedule with a 9th game for the 2 teams in the championship. But yeah, I agree. I mean, it's just going to depend on how the other conferences shake out. Obviously, if you have an undefeated team come out of the Big Ten, they're going to have a case for the committee. But if they played fewer games, that's gonna hurt them compared to a team like UCF, which will probably go undefeated because who else do they play? But that does give them a little bit more of a case. I just think this was a big blunder by the Big Ten. It does make them look like complete idiots because they did say they were doing it for protection, and now that they know it's going to hurt their wallets, and the rest of the league's still doing it pretty much. Yeah, it's tough for them to try to save face at this point.
Yeah. Well, I guess I'll ask, and we can just talk about, through this question, the particular scenarios. What would your 4 playoff teams be at this point? And I know we haven't seen the Big Ten, obviously, but you kind of already know who they're playing. There's not really any, big non-conference games this year. So what would your 4 playoff teams be at this point after like one non-conference game where everyone played cupcakes?
This is tough. So, I mean, if we're going to include, I do think that Ohio State's going to sneak in there somehow. Doesn't matter what happens. But I mean, I'm picking Alabama to be in there. This is tough. I mean, I feel like I got to go Clemson. I mean, granted, they haven't played anyone other than Wake Forest and the Citadel yet.
Yeah.
But hard to pick against them, and I don't know. Maybe I go with LSU.
And you're leaving out Oklahoma? Woo.
I am.
Okay, so that's your 4. LSU's your 4th pick. Okay.
I'm good. Yeah. And to be clear, that's not in order.
Right. Yeah, I wouldn't say we'd have to make that distinction yet, but
Not yet.
well, okay. I'm just gonna put it out there. I think Clemson for sure, and I do think they'll be the number 1 seed, just because the ACC is pretty bad, and they don't get to play a good non-conference game. I do think Alabama gets back there. The only reason they weren't in the championship this past year was because of LSU. Although Mac Jones didn't really impress against Auburn too much. But I do think if they have 1 loss, they're pretty much a guaranteed in. And then I guess, I don't know. I think it's tough because between the last 3 teams, I could see 2 different things happening, and that's Ohio State getting in if they go undefeated. And then Oklahoma for sure gets in if they're undefeated, but I think if they lose one game, and there's two SEC teams that only have lost one game, and Ohio State's undefeated, I think it's going to be the two SEC teams, Clemson, Ohio State. So, I don't know. I think there's for sure going to be two SEC teams, but I don't know which two, because how good is LSU really going to be? I don't know. I might go with I don't know. I might go with Auburn, just because if both Alabama and Auburn are undefeated going into the game they play each other, I think they will both get in with one loss and a championship win. So, yeah, I'll go with Alabama, Auburn, Clemson, and I think Oklahoma, just based on the fact that I don't think Ohio State will go undefeated.
Well, I just looked up Ohio State's schedule,
Oh, that might be important.
and I think they will go undefeated.
Okay.
They play Nebraska, Penn State, who is their toughest opponent, but then Rutgers, Maryland, Indiana, Illinois, Michigan State, and then Michigan.
Oh man, Purdue's not even in there.
I know. I think they go undefeated. I think if they get past Penn State, I mean, I'm not too worried about the rest of those teams. People might say Michigan, but Michigan has not shown up against any ranked teams at all since Harbaugh's been there. So
I'm still going to go with Oklahoma, because I know just our new quarterback. He's now Bino guy. I don't know. I think he's better than Jalen Hurts. I really did not like Jalen Hurts at all. So I think we'll go undefeated, even though we still have to play like teams like Texas Tech, which we usually choke against, or Iowa State. I don't know. I don't see any way they could put Ohio State in over us if we're both undefeated. I still think they choose a one-loss SEC team over Ohio State undefeated.
yeah, that's going to be a tough decision when it comes to selection, but I think we're just going to have to wait and see how this goes. I mean,
Yeah, it's going to be
with the Big Ten shutting down, who knows? Maybe Ohio State comes out flat. I doubt it, but I hope.
Yes, we can all hope. I'll cheer for Wisconsin. Wisconsin 8-0, make the playoff. Come on.
That's right. Although with no Jonathan Taylor, little concerned. Well, that covers football pretty good, I think.
Oh, yeah.
We talked quite a bit about the MLB, and to be honest, nothing's changed really. There's been a couple teams who have clinched, but that was expected.
Yeah,
the
we'll
AL
probably
is
get to that
pretty-
more, I guess, next time whenever the playoffs are set. So.
The AL is pretty much set. The NL is just totally wild. It could. Who knows how it's going to finish out? The wild card standings are changing every day. That's something we'll cover more next week once the playoffs are set. We did talk about the NBA quite a little bit last time. Jonas, you got anything you want to add about the NBA?
Yeah, I think Gordon Hayward returned Game 3 for the Celtics. I think with that addition, they could win the series. And I think the Nuggets are priming themselves for the third 3-1 comeback of this playoff run for them. But ultimately, I think this series with the Lakers turns out to be really boring, and the Lakers win like 4-1. Other than that, yeah, not too much more to add, just kind of a little update there. And then I guess I'll just go ahead and go on to the Stars and the Lightning. They're tied 1-1 for the Stanley Cup. The Stars, I did watch some of the Game 2. They had so many penalties, which killed them. I think the Lightning had all three of their goals on penalty time, and that just really killed Dallas. And they couldn't quite come back from 3-1 down in the third period, and they lost that game 3-2. But it'll be interesting to see who ends up winning Game 3. And then I guess if you've made it this far, 80 minutes in, you get to listen to the spot on the podcast of sports that no one cares about. So I guess the first thing, Bryson DeChambeau won the I believe the U.S. Open. If that was the golf tournament that was indeed going on this weekend, to be honest, I don't even know. I don't know if you saw anything about that.
No, I did hear about it just a little bit, but I think you know a little bit more about it than I do.
Yeah, but all I know is that this guy's like a mad scientist, just uses the analytics, you know. I guess with all the angles and the curves of golf courses, you know, if knowing all that stuff allows you to hit it where you want, which obviously you still have to have the skill to hit the little tiny white ball wherever you would like to. And if you don't do that, I guess you're in trouble. But yeah, I guess it's cool to see science actually coming into sports more and more. But then the next part is the good old WNBA. I know everyone cares about that so much. I think they're in the semifinals.
That's correct. I just looked it up.
And just for curiosity, I looked. There is a 10-12 team that is currently winning a series in the semifinals. And if that shows you how much the difference in women athletes are, at least playing basketball, it doesn't look like it matters too much how good you are. So you can still win in the WNBA. And then
I think part of it has to deal with it being a much smaller. There's fewer teams, so that's definitely a part of it too. I mean, if they want to have a more competitive league, they got to add more teams. But I don't think they have the widespread talent to do an expansion.
Yeah, I don't think they want to do a widespread expansion. The other thing is Brianna Stewart, I guess, is also really good because her team is back in the semifinals. So I guess she's actually, you know, a pretty talented basketball player. But besides her, I don't know if there's anyone that, you know, makes a case for you to watch the WNBA. And then I guess the last segment would be Mark's absolute favorite sport, and that's the MLS.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I'm just going to finish this out by asking two questions and answering them in one answer. One, how do soccer standings even work? Are they even playing? And I'll tell you the answer to that question. We just don't care.
We do not.
Well, this has been the MJ Sports Podcast. Thank you for listening, and we'll be back next week.
Amen to that, brother.